Hi, welcome to the Signal Path. In this episode, I have something rather unusual to show you. This is not the kind of instrument we typically look at here at the Signal Path, but there is something really interesting about it. This is the Simpson Multicorder 604. It is a plotting multimeter from the mid-1960s, so quite a bit older than I am. Now, what makes it interesting is that they accomplished a printing function where the actual multimeter is completely passive. Now, remember that thermal paper wasn't really commercialized by TI until the end of 1960s, so this is not using a thermal paper. At the same time, there's no pen inside of this, so it's not drawing it there. But the fact that the front end is passive means that they have to have some mechanism of transferring the information from here to the paper. But how do they do that? And they do it in a really interesting way. So I want to show you how it works, what is on the inside. I also want to see it in action. Now, I know what you're thinking. There's a power cord going inside of this. So what do I mean by this being passive? Actually, this power cord only powers the motor inside of this little mechanism that advances the paper. There's no power going into the multimeter section itself, which means that the energy that you put into this only comes from its input terminals to move the needle. There's a needle in here. I'll show you that in a second. And that's really the challenge, because how do you actually draw on this paper when you have so little energy going inside of the actual multimeter section? And that's where the cool part is. And I do have some analog meters here in the lab. Whenever there is something interesting about them, I tend to collect them. For example, the one here in the middle has a full-scale 6,000 volt input for both the DC and the AC, which is rather unusual. The one here on the right has a built-in high-voltage power supply for measuring leakage current, and the one on the left has an interesting overload protected input that can be reset by this little button here in the front, which is also quite cool. And I also did a video a long time ago about this one over here. This is a watts meter, and it can measure the amount of power without any active circuitry in it at all. It uses some really clever mechanical and electromagnetic devices in there to measure the amount of power that's going through a circuit by connecting it here through the terminals. As is often the case, whenever there are limitations, good engineers become really creative. And back then, because of the limitation in technology, they had to find these really interesting ways to perform the functions they wanted. Now, a really good analog meter uses a pretty sensitive needle over here, and that's because you want to be able to deflect this with only a few microamps of current, especially when these instruments are completely passive, because this deflection comes from the energy you put into the unit itself. And in order to have a really high input impedance, you're going to have to draw very little current to move this. As a result, these things can move pretty fast, but at the same time, they have essentially no torque at all, and even a smallest amount of force will stop them. So the idea of using the actual needle to draw on a paper, that's just not going to work, because you're going to need so much friction, and it's never going to be accurate. So we have to see what they've done, because they're still using that needle, but in a really cool way. So what kind of measurements can you do with the Simpson 604? Well, you can measure DC voltage, DC current, AC voltage, and AC current, which is not bad. Now, of course, the capabilities on the DC is far greater because it's a much simpler front end. You don't need any rectification. You can essentially drive the coil of the needle directly with some voltage dividers. It does represent a 20,000 ohms per volt input resistance for the voltage input. So on a 0.1 volt full scale, you're dealing with a 2 kilo ohm input resistance. At that point, it's most likely just directly driving the actual needle. On the lowest current, 50 microamp can fully deflect the needle, which is also not bad. It tells you something about the amount of torque the needle could possibly have, because 50 microamp is a pretty small amount of current. At the same time, it does go all the way to 1 amp, again with some shunt resistor most likely driving some residual current to move the needle. On the AC, it does go to a 5 kilo ohm per volt input, because it most likely has to have a front-end rectifier, maybe either a full bridge or a half bridge, in order to then go through some voltage divider and ultimately drive the needle again. The AC current input is limited to only 0.2 milliamp. So not so bad, but this is not really intended to be used as a bench multimeter. The needle right now is parked all the way here in the corner. It's somewhat difficult to see. This is really intended to be connected to something and then log data over a long period of time as this paper slowly advances. And this was clearly owned by somebody named C. Freeze. I don't know if you're watching, but that's a pretty cool last name. And let's quickly check to see if this thing even works. I have it connected to the Rohde & Schwarz NGU401, which is a source measure unit, and we can go through a couple of ranges and see if the needle deflects correctly. So let's give it a try. Right now we're in a 10 volt full scale, so let's apply some voltage here. Here's 1 volt. There it is, not bad. Here's 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 should be down the middle. Look at that, it's almost perfect down the middle. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 volt. Here's 10 volt, that's full scale. Indeed it is. It's working quite nicely. Let's try the smallest voltage range. Here is 0.1 volt, and I can apply the same thing. Let's do 50 millivolt here. And here's 50 millivolt. And look at that. Honestly, not so bad for something that is 60 years old or so. Here is full scale at 0.1, and it is indeed perfectly full scale. Yeah, pretty impressive. I mean, not surprising because unless the resistors are broken, this is purely passive, of course, so it's going to work. You saw earlier that it's not even plugged in. Let's try the current range. So I'm going to go to, let's say, the 5 milliamp range over here. And let's see. I have to read you the current that I'm actually applying. So here's 1 milliamp being applied, 1.1 milliamp. And here is, let's take it down the middle. Here's 2.6 milliamp, 2.4 milliamp. Yeah, look at that. That's also pretty good. Now, one of the nice features of this is that I can now change the range and the current measurement, and the needle is not going to slam onto one side because it has the resistor steps in such a way where the same voltage is going to roughly keep the needle in the middle. So, for example, if I go to 25, you can see that it doesn't move so much. Right now, we're in 25 milliamp range. Here's back to 5. Here's 1 milliamp range. Wow, this one moved actually quite a bit. Here's 250 microamp. Here's 50 microamp, which now becomes full scale. Yeah, not so bad. So it at least is to some extent protected. It doesn't slam all the way from one side to the other, even though when I went from 25 milliamp full scale to 50 microamp full scale, it still works. So let me go down to the 50 microamp and read you what the current is. So this is now 50. Let me bring it down to 25 microamp. Here's 20, roughly here, 25 microamp. Look at that. It's measuring 25 microamp almost perfectly. Yeah, pretty impressive. Now let's see the plotting function. And to open the instrument to see what's inside, it's really easy. There are two screws over here, which then once you open, it swings up. And this is, of course, necessary because you need to be able to replace the paper pretty easily. A few things to note. In the back of the meter, the entire specification is written. For example, all the input impedances as well as the burden voltage across all the ranges is there, as well as the instructions on how to operate the little plotter. You can see that the AC line going over here doesn't go anywhere else except for what's inside of the plotter, which is of course going to be a motor. There are a lot of gears in this, as we will see, because of the multiple functions it has and the different ways it can be configured. There are a couple of levers down here which you can adjust. For example, you can adjust how fast this thing actually advances. So you can start from 1 inch per hour, 3 inches per hour, and you can go as fast as 12 inches per hour. That's what she said. Sorry about that. And then you can see that we can remove the little component over here which houses the paper. Now this is a special kind of paper. This is a pressure sensitive paper, and that's part of the magic of how this plotter actually works. People still make these, but they're not that common. These pressure-sensitive papers have a pigment of ink that is just around the surface, and when you press that, that mechanical force breaks those, and it reveals the ink in the surface. It's kind of like a carbon copy, but it's a standalone thing that allows you to just apply very little pressure, and it will show up. I'll show you a piece of the paper that I've taken out. The rest is really pretty straightforward. Nothing else is going on, but I do want to bring your attention to this gear over here, because this gear is pretty important. Let me zoom into it. So as the paper advances, this gear also rotates, and you can see that it has these sliding teeth, and then it drops off and slide and drops off, and that engages with another mechanism that's near the actual needle of the meter. I'll show you. But if you were wondering, this other lever between M, E, and D simply chooses how this paper advances. M uses the internal motor, and E and D use external motors, but this can be, again, dependent on it or not. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that in this format, the internal motor will advance the paper as well as rotate this gear at the same time. So now let's look at the meter side. And now we're looking from the bottom into where the needle actually is and the mechanism. So right now the needle is free. You can see that if I gently touch it, I can move it, and that's to be expected because these things can move very easily. This needle is quite sensitive. But there's also another lever over here. Look what happens when I push this lever down. A plate comes in, and that plate pushes against the needle. Now the needle can no longer move, and the point of contact between this plate that runs across the entire range and that little point pushes the needle ever so gently towards us. Now this movement is pretty tiny, maybe just a few millimeters at most. But as soon as this lever is down, you can see that there's a spring over here, and that spring loads this. The gear I just showed you simply slides across this piece of metal. Now look what happens. It slides over here. When it's at this point, the needle is free to move, and then it runs over it, and it slams down. And that slamming motion brings this needle and taps it ever so gently on the actual paper. That's it. That's the plotting function. This point of contact between the needle and this bar running across presses on top of the paper, and it makes a tiny dot. And that's a sample. That's how it records that particular measurement. And because it's periodically moving, it frees the needle so it can go to where the measurement is, and then it snaps back, snaps down the value, and then it frees it again to move. And this process repeats. So it has essentially a certain sampling rate, quote unquote. So here you go. You can see what happens. You see it goes up like that, and then drops it, and it goes up like that, and it drops it. And when I measure and I'm running this, you can actually hear the tapping constantly going on. That's pretty crazy. It's such an unusual mechanism, but yeah, it works, and it apparently works for a very long time because you can see that needle is perfectly fine, nothing's happened to it, and that point of contact just gently presses against the paper. When you close this thing basically lands right at the top of the plotter paper, and that's where the plotting is going to happen. This is why it is not really intended to be a kind of a meter sitting on a bench, although you can use it like that, because this entire mechanism is fairly well hidden. You can't really see this, but they have to do some kind of an alignment because the tip of this needle, of course, and where it touches the plate are not exactly in the same location, and that's just a mechanical geometry movement that they can account for. And that's it. That's the plotting function. So that motor slowly, gently rotates. And if you don't want this, you don't want the plotting, you just push this up, and now the needle is completely free. This thing is permanently pushed back, and it never touches the needle. But if you want to plot it, bring it down, close it, and begin plotting. Pretty amazing. Let's try it out. And here's our plotting setup. So the instrument is running, and the signal is coming from a function generator all the way at the top over there. I'm running a 1 millihertz sinusoid, and that 1 millihertz sinusoid is going directly into the instrument, and it's plotting. Let's take a closer look at it. And check it out. You can see the little snapping of the needle. How cool is that? And you can see a little line that has already formed from the sinusoid being plotted. So let it run for a while so we can pull out the paper and see the actual waveform. And here's the result of the plot, and you can clearly see the sinusoid right over here. That's the 1 millihertz one, and right over here I changed the frequency to 5 millihertz. These little squiggly lines, I just drew those. For some reason, the first take didn't have any audio. These numbers over here, obviously, that was not drawn by the instrument. These were already on the pressure-sensitive paper. And if you zoom in a little bit more, you can see that every little dot here has an elongation to it. That's because we're striking the actual needle. That's the width of the needle over there. So yeah, pretty good. There's also a center line that runs across. I'm not sure if that's on purpose, but it looks like it's kind of the center of the axis. Maybe, or maybe there's just something stuck, it's dragging along. But yeah, this is a pressure-sensitive paper. And you can see that I can write on it using this. I can write at the back of this. It doesn't really matter. Pretty convenient because this entire thing can therefore be mechanically driven. There's no ink to replace. Of course, you need this special paper, which I can't really find anymore. If you know the source of this paper or where I can get it, please do let me know in the comment section. It would be good to have some of this just because it's such an interesting novelty. And you can see that the individual samples are getting further apart when the frequency is higher. And that's because it has a certain quote-unquote sample rate. It does maybe about 1 sample per second. So you're going to have these gaps between the measurements. And this is not really intended for any fast plotting. This is clearly something that you kind of hang around on the wall. It even has a place you can hang it on the wall. And then it just plots over many hours or even many days, depending on the speed, and just shows you the trend. But it's a pretty cool little instrument from the 1960s. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this quick video about this rather unusual plotter. As always, let me know what you think in the comment section. I have several state-of-the-art instrument reviews that are in the works. You're going to really like them. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it, and I'll see you next time.